Everybody, it is Mondy here, and I'm so excited to welcome you to the Q&A with the amazing Taylor Flows. Now, if you are watching this on the replay, just comment replay below and let us know exactly where in the world you're watching from, because that's really exciting for us to hear. If you are on live, if you could let us know that you can hear me okay, you can see me okay. I hope it's all going to work well. And while we wait, I'm going to wait for Taylor to come and ask to be on the live. While we wait for Taylor to come, I'll tell you a tiny bit about my free challenge that I am running this week. So on Wednesday this week, I'm going to be running a free challenge called From Hoop Lover to Hoop Teacher. And this challenge is for you if you feel like you're someone who would love to teach hoop, but you're not feeling very confident, or like you don't know enough tricks, or you like haven't been hula hooping long enough. If that sounds like you, but you still would really love to teach, then join my free challenge. All you got to do is comment challenge, and there should be like a lovely automated link that gets sent to you. You can sign up, and it's just a lot of fun. I've been running it for a few years now. And if you enjoy the challenge, the free challenge, you can then join my hoop teacher training, which launches on Monday. And on this hoop teacher training, I'm bringing the threads together. We have the amazing Taylor Flows. Taylor's going to be doing a guest workshop on my hoop teacher training. It's my certification. So she's going to be running a workshop in that hoop teacher training all about how to make amazing hoop tutorials. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to her tonight, aside from the fact that she is just amazing in general. So I'm going to add Taylor to the chat. And like I said, if you want to join my free challenge, just write challenge. And it should give you the link. All right, here we go. Hopefully Taylor's going to come on. Come on. Is it going to work? I'll just keep chatting. Write some comments while we're waiting. Hopefully she's going to join and it will work. Yay! Hi, Taylor. How are you doing?
What was that?
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We're like that, the two houses, the pink house and the black house. We've got like alternate like vibes going on today.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing? How's your day been?
Good, good. It's just it's been a pretty chill day. Just did some hula hooping outside just now, and I'm preparing to get into my tutorial work for the day after this. So this is perfect timing.
This is a good link. This is a good link. Okay, so so I've got some questions for you. I've also got a few people who've asked questions in advance to ask you about certain things. And if anyone's joining live or doing on the catch up, just write your questions and I'll try and keep up with them to ask. But yeah, I wanted to start back at the beginning. When did you actually first start making tutorials? And like, so how did it come about? Where did you start? Was it YouTube? Was it Instagram? What was going on?
This is a great question. So I think I made my first ever tutorial back in like 2015, 2016, and I think it was on Instagram. So it was very much so just for fun. Didn't have any serious nature behind it. And I just wanted to take a crack at making a tutorial because it seemed really fun. And I love the idea of the whole community kind of rising together. So I believe tutorials is a great way for all of us to learn no matter where we are. A lot of us don't have classes accessible in our areas, or maybe we just don't feel like going outside and are more suited for a learning environment by yourself. So I felt really motivated to start there.
Do you remember what trick it was? Do you recall what trick it actually was, or is it back in the archives in your brain?
I have to look at that because I actually cannot remember. I think it was maybe a coin flip, if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that. I'll have to report back. But I think it was a basic coin flip variation tutorial. It was like a one-handed coin flip, a two-handed coin flip, and I think that was it.
Okay.
But
awesome.
Yeah, I truly didn't really start making tutorials in a serious facet until around 2019. So around when the pandemic hit is when I got really serious about tutorial creation. I had lost my job, the pandemic had happened, everything was shut down. So I decided to get really serious about tutorial creation. And I started posting, I think like 3 tutorials a week on Patreon because there was nothing really else to do in the pandemic aside from sit at home and hula hoop and mess around with tutorials. So, and then from there, it's become what it is today.
So tell me, you obviously really love it, like making tutorials and sharing it. What is it specifically that you like about it? Is it the process? Is it the reaction from people who take your tutorials? What is it that you love?
My favorite part about creating tutorials is once the tutorial is completed and someone has tried that tutorial and got it successfully, there is no better feeling in the world than that to me, when people like tag me in their videos on Instagram or even like send me a personalized video via Instagram or Patreon, and I see them successfully do the tutorial. So that's definitely my favorite part.
Amazing. You get like the secondhand joy of someone else. I feel like that with teaching in general. You're just like, yes, you feel it like they feel it. It's
Exactly.
so brilliant.
Yeah, I literally like just like whenever I see someone do a trick, like I'm a very excitable person. So, and I like to celebrate other people's success as well with it, because it can be really discouraging learning a new trick. So I think that, you know, it's really good for us to be really encouraging as hoop teachers when that process works out and when that hard work pays off.
Exactly. And speaking of hard stuff, is there like what's the hardest bit of making tutorials for you? Is there a bit that you find sticky or hard, or at least what was hard at the beginning that maybe has become easier over time?
That's a great question. Honestly, it took me a very long time to learn how to talk through a tutorial. And that probably seems a little bit silly because we all know how to talk and we all know how to communicate with each other. But when we don't have any feedback from another person, it's actually extremely difficult to know what cues are useful and what are not. And I think that's the hardest part about making a tutorial in general, is finding the communication style and the cues that are useful for the general population, because everyone has such different learning styles and everyone learns extremely differently. Like one cue may be insanely helpful for this group of people and another cue may be really helpful for another. So finding things that are like all encompassing to allow a higher success rate for everyone and finding the words to do so is the hardest part for sure.
That really makes sense. I think people find that with not just making tutorials, but teaching in general. Like there's a balance between almost like you're over explaining it too much, the words are just getting away from you, versus going, just do it like me.
Yeah.
People are like, what? So you've got to find that balance. And then I guess you've also, like you say, finding the different learning styles. People might prefer to watch you mirrored. They might be prefer to watch you from behind. So you've got to take that all into account while you're making your tutorials.
Exactly.
And do you find, I find it interesting these days, sound like the OG back in the day hooper. A lot of people post tutorials just facing the camera, which I think is quite a TikTok thing. And I find that my brain does not like that. I prefer both angles, so I can see both. When you do your Patreon, do you do both? Because you've got the time to kind of, to add all the angles in.
Yeah, so I think that's also a byproduct of this Instagram, TikTok quick culture is what I like to call it. So we have a minute to squeeze in all of this information. And I think that really takes away from the detail that most people find useful, which is why I prefer to use Patreon as a platform, because it allows me to take as much time as I want. But yeah, I find that forward facing is very, very difficult to learn from, because we're having to reverse everything in a mirrored format here on the other side of the screen. So it makes it really tricky. And on Patreon, because I have so much time, I'm able to do forwards, backwards. I do slow-mos and side to side as well, just so everybody can see those tiny little micro things that are happening when we're doing a hoop trick, because the smallest thing can make the biggest difference in you getting a trick successfully, or you doing it frustrated a million times and possibly even giving up on that trick. So I think it's really important.
Absolutely. So I've got some questions from other people. One person, I don't know if she's live on the chat, is Lila Hoops, the amazing and wonderful French hula hooper. She's an incredible performer, incredible teacher. She's also doing a guest workshop in my hoop teacher training. So you do an amazing one on making great hoop tutorials. Lila does an amazing one on how to create your first hoop act from scratch, because it's very challenging and sometimes daunting. So I said to Leela, because I do a Q&A with her tomorrow, and I was like, what do you want to ask Taylor? So her question for you is, how much do you plan, how far in advance do you plan your tutorials? Do you mind map all of them first, or is it on the go?
That's a great question. And my process can look a little bit different from week to week. So sometimes I plan things in advance for a whole month. I'm very type A with my work that I like to do. So I like to always have tutorials created in advance. So I'm never scrambling the week of what kind of tutorial do I make? What do I do? Because I feel like when I'm working under pressure, I usually don't do my best work. And I feel like creativity is something that needs to be nurtured and have a more curious mindset about it. And when I feel really like pressured about tutorial creation specifically, it usually doesn't yield to good results, and I usually get pretty frustrated. So I usually like to have at least 3 tutorials made in the arsenal, ready to go, ready to post. So that's about a month in advance. And then for planning new tutorials, I'll practice and have ideas that come to me, and then I'll write them down. And then I'll kind of troubleshoot and see if this is something that I feel like people would be interested in learning, or I'll just nix that and go to a different idea. So usually it's about like a month in advance from when I think about a tutorial and then create it.
Interesting. And do you do that approach if you're teaching? I know you teach around the world at various hoop retreats. Like, do you plan your live classes like miles in advance? I can imagine you're like working away at it a lot in advance, right? You get it
It's
sorted.
so funny. Yeah, I'll plan my live classes a month in advance as well, and then I'll usually annoy my friends or my partner and be like, "Oh, is this cool? Like, is this a cool idea? Do you think people would want to learn this?" And I'll troubleshoot it for the whole month leading up to the event and decide and tweak what I do want to teach and don't want to teach, and make up little cues and things that will be helpful for people to learn with.
Oh, brilliant. All right, let me ask another question. So actually, a few people had a similar type of question, actually. So I'm going to mold it together. How do you balance your time between teaching and learning new things? So what's an average week? I guess like, because you hula hooping as well as other flow props is your work, but also your passion. So how do you balance it without, losing the love?
So I actually just had an epiphany the other week about this exact principle.
Okay.
And I made a little post about it, and it is extremely hard. Like, I never want to diminish this for creatives at all. It is extremely hard to have that balance where if you're teaching something or if you turn something creative into a career, it is really, really, really underratedly hard to balance teaching and, if you performing and doing that creative task for money and monetizing it, and then also balancing it and kind of disconnecting from that mindset to have fun with it and play and practice. And it is honestly something that I am still figuring out a healthy balance to.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I think it's a lifelong process for most creatives to get in that space of like the ebb and flow of the monetization, the creativity, and allow them to live harmoniously. But I have recently been dedicating time in my schedule for play. I know that seems so counterintuitive, like scheduling playtime. It seems so like elementary, but actually it's helped so much to have that hour or 2 hours, every day or every week to just kind of disconnect from that mindset of what can I create that people will enjoy, and connect back into what feels good to me and what do I want to practice for myself. So yeah, honestly, scheduling has been my best friend with that.
Interesting. And do you find, because I know you do multiple props, not just hula hooping, do you find that having play with all the props at the same time, or do you schedule in like, this is my time for fans, this is my time for hula hooping?
It's more so intuitive for right now, because I feel like I've attained a good level with each of the props that I really enjoy. That I don't feel like I have to be as rigid about what I practice and when. So if one day I'm feeling like practicing hoop juggling, which has been the pinnacle of my excitement lately with hula hoops is hoop juggling, then I'll do that. Or if I'm feeling like I'm practicing fans today, I usually don't like to set guidelines of what I want to practice and just kind of let that speak for itself when I'm starting to practice.
And do you film your playtime? Is your playtime like, I'm not even going to have the camera on because that puts me off?
So sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Primarily with what I've been working on lately in my own personal practice is hoop juggling. I will record just for the purpose of monitoring my form.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually kind of what I did when I first started hula hooping in general too, is I would just record my playtime. I didn't really have a mirror to practice in, and I find it a little bit distracting also to just be looking at a mirror while practicing, and I feel like it kind of puts you in a box of facing forward if you do get into that mindset. So if any new hula hoopers out there are just starting, record yourself on your phone or camera or something, even if it is just playtime, because it really, really does help.
Mm-hmm. I think as well, having it on for a long period of time, the camera that is, can be more helpful when you're a beginner, because I think if you press the camera and you're like, I'm going to do a thing for the camera, then it's almost like having an audience and you panic. So having like okay, I'm going to run it for an hour and, you know, whatever happens, happens, forget it. That's quite helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like a form of exposure therapy as well, I feel like, because you have like an artificial audience that's watching you. So it's that exposure therapy of getting over the fear of the camera, because that's a whole hurdle in itself as well.
That's a whole nother thing. Okay, so going back to teaching tutorials, another couple of people had a similar question. Do you have like a pre-tutorial making routine? Like, how do you prepare yourself to start making a tutorial, like filming it? Do you have anything that you do? Someone else is asking, how do you make your tutorials so good? Well, that's a big question. What lighting do you use? That's another question. So yeah, do you have any pre-tutorial filming sort of things that you do? Do you meditate? Do you just go in there? And then also, what lights do you use? Two different questions.
I don't necessarily have like a ritual pre-performing or pre-tutorial creation. Caffeine actually has been
just like shots of coffee.
Exactly. I'll set my I usually drink like an energy drink. I'm not really a coffee person. I'll have like an energy yerba mate or a matcha and like a big jug of water just next to my camera, just so I can hydrate, caffeinate. That's really my only ritual prior, aside from making sure that my headphones that I use as a microphone are charged. But as for lighting, I use a ring light that I'm actually using right now. It's just a big circle. It's a circle. Hey. Just your basic ring light. Nice. A little tripod on it. Yeah, nothing fancy. I only use my iPhone to record too, so it's not a high budget job over here.
But it does the job, and I think that's the most important thing, that people can actually see what you're doing, and hear you. You got that sorted. Everything else is fine.
Exactly. That's all you really need.
Yes. And quality content, obviously. All right, another question. This is more general, not so much about tutorials, but have you got any tips for finding your flow when you're in a bit of a sticky, like you feel like you're always coming back to the same tricks?
I love this question. So switching it up, energetically switching different styles of music, if you only flow to one style of music, I find usually puts you in a little bit of a rut. Also, flowing to absolutely no music can be extremely helpful for getting out of that rut as well. I find that sometimes for me personally, not having music really does a lot more for me than like having music, because you have that sort of requirement of needing to go to the beat of music. And then you can get caught in that same beat if you're flowing to the same type of music. Picking up different props can also really unlock a lot for people. Whenever I felt really stuck in my double hoop flow, I find that if I pick up my fans and play with those for a little bit and get kind of a different vantage point from a different prop, that can really, really help a lot too, and just kind of get more creativity flowing. Also, doing different types of physical movement can help as well. Stretching, doing yoga can open a lot of different pathways in your body where you feel really stuck. So if I'm feeling in a rut as well, will maybe stretch a little bit more before a session, or I'm really into like weightlifting at the gym right now. So if I'm feeling stuck in that, maybe I'll like go lift weights or do something else physical. And the last piece of advice that I like to give people is just taking a break sometimes. You know, forcing things can be a lot more frustrating than just walking away and creating a healthy boundary and creating some space with it. You know, just because you take like a couple day break doesn't mean that you're going to quit forever. But taking a little bit of time off can really refresh your body and your mind and help you feel a little less frustrated with things.
I totally agree. I think it's something about taking that rest. It allows things to integrate as well. And often you'll find that you'll go away and come back and be like, oh, I can do that now. Like it's just your brain's kind of worked it out as it's gone along.
Exactly.
Yeah, interestingly, going back to what you were saying about not having music, you just triggered a memory in my head from many years ago when I was training in Australia with a circus teacher who was quite hardcore about circus splits. And she was like, you will not have music because when you're splitting hoops, you like your body naturally will go with the beat. So she was, you will learn your own beat with no music. So yeah, it's not just you. I think it's a real technique.
Yeah, there's a real science behind it. You know, when we are exposed to beats and percussive things, like our body wants to move within that rhythm and that motion. It's like magnetic almost to that frequency. And when you don't have that, your body can kind of regulate and move to its own beat and frequency. So that's really cool that your teacher also mentioned that.
Right, everyone watching this, this is your chance. Next time you pick up your hula hoop or your prop, you're doing it silently. If anybody's on live and you want to ask a question of Taylor, type it in now. Otherwise, I'll see if there's anything else that I got asked. I mean, tell us a tiny bit more about your Patreon. How do we sign up? How many people have you got on your Patreon at the moment? Do you know off the top of your head? How can we join? Tell us a bit about that, and we'll see if anyone else has questions.
Awesome. So I think I have around like 500 people subscribed. There are some free members on there as well. So I think it's about 300 people that are like paying for a subscription. And I have a few different tiers within the system. So the lowest tier is $10 a month and the highest tier is $40 a month. It kind of just levels in variations of involvement. So the $10 and $15 tiers get a good amount of tutorials every month, but also all tutorials that I've ever made for that tier prior. So a lot of the questions that I get is just like, oh, do you only get access to 1 or 2 tutorials a month? Nope, you get access to everything that I've ever created, which is over 600 tutorials on there and counting. So there's new ones added every single Monday. And then the $20 tier is all encompassing. So you get everything on there. So tricks, tutorials, and then also a exclusive segment for the $20 and $40 tier called Long Combo Choreo. And it's basically choreographies without music that you can do at your own beat of tricks, transitions, combos, and movement as well. So it's really nice. And then the $40 tier is everything, and then a private lesson with me monthly.
Brilliant. So, it's so inspiring. It's so amazing to see you take it and, you know, create this massive community, but also like a self-sustaining income for yourself, especially after, like you're saying, the pandemic and all that kind of thing. Like really, really inspiring. I'm super, super proud of you because you're amazing. And I wanted to, I think, wrap it up. No one else seems to have a question from us live. But just to say, I'm excited for your workshop in my teacher training. So you're going to do more specifics about actually how to make a tutorial from scratch, like all the top tips that you have, all of the do not do's, all of probably your mistakes that you've made that you've learned from. Step 1, make sure microphone is on before recording, etc. That kind of stuff. So if anyone is interested in that, and like I said, if you're interested in my free mini challenge, from hoop lover to hoop teacher, that starts this Wednesday. So just write the word challenge, or you can just go to my Instagram page and click on the link. That is free. There's also lots of cool prizes you can win, so you might as well just come and do it for the prizes. So come and do that. And then, like I said, my hula hoop teacher training, Live Love Hoop teacher training, it doors open on Monday. And if you book that, you get an amazing certification, but also amazing workshops with Taylor Flows, Leela Shupa Hoops, and Gail O'Brien, who teaches hoop making. So hopefully you guys, everyone who came today, you're going to come tomorrow for Leela Shupa Hoops Q&A. I've got a question from Taylor for Leela as well. I'm passing it on. Oh, someone said I'm inspired to start hula hooping. Yes.
Yay!
Join us. Join us, join the cult. But yeah, and if you want to go deep into Taylor's teaching life, join her Patreon immediately. I have no idea which hoop to buy. Don't you worry. Send us a message. We'll figure out the right hoop size for you. That is not a problem. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say? Oh, could you tell us where you're teaching this year? Have you got events you want to promote? Where can people find you in the world?
Yeah. Yes. So this year I am primarily staying over around the Western Hemisphere. I'm going to be teaching at I almost just gave away an event that I can't announce yet.
An exclusive, Taylor, an exclusive. Tell us the deets.
You just make me want to tell all my secrets right now. So I'm going to be teaching at High Altitude Hoop Retreat and Oasis Hoop Retreat this year. And I have something really, really, really exciting happening next year in April. That's super top secret. You can report to my page for an announcement on that. But super exciting, and it may or may not involve fire things.
Ooh, how exciting. All right, well, TBC, watch out. When do we find out about this? Next week? Next month?
No, within the next month or so.
Okay. All right, well, stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining me, my love, and I will see you in a few weeks for the Hoop Teacher Training Workshop. But yeah, lovely to see your face.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait for the workshop.
Bye.